or more right to be here than other establishments or institutions I've been here. I understand there's a great tradition of celebratory behavior here, so I'm glad to contribute my expertise in that field to this great institution. I have never attended college or university, so this is also really exciting to have made my way here in the capacity of professional partying. And I have been to Oxford to perform at, I believe, Zodiac a couple times, and never really even got to see much more than just that block that the venue was on, but I remember it always very well. There's an atmosphere here that is unique. There's a babbling brook. What is the name of that stream? There's like are there multiple streams? Is that it?
The river?
The river. I remember that. I remember eating kebabs and remember having a lot of fun at the shows. But other than that, this is a new experience for me and really my first lecture at a school here in England. So thank you again for making this happen. It took a lot of concentrated effort since February, and it really worked out beautifully. So I think it was meant to be. It was a good omen that it all ended up happening. So, as was said, I started with music and remained with music mainly because for me it was a very direct tool, a means to an end for joy, to get to a place of good feeling. But I never imagined that I would become a musician by trade or devote my life or have a career in entertainment at all. But by the time I moved to New York at age 18, I decided that maybe that's what I was meant to do. I liked the living arts or entertainment because pretty much anything creative has a place there. And as someone who also likes artwork and drawing and painting, you can paint your album cover or paint a t-shirt design or paint a backdrop and have a use for it. If you're someone who likes film, you can make a music video. If you're someone who likes writing, beyond lyrics for songs, you can write and it can be entertaining. So it seemed like this great field where anything creative not only was allowed but had a use. And that was what was really hard for me initially with, I guess, the arts, is that sometimes they didn't seem like they had any use beyond a painting being hung on a wall. In entertainment industry, there's like an applied business side to it that really made it seem more legitimate. I don't know if that really matters at the end of the day, as long as you get a good feeling out of it, but I liked the idea that there was a purpose to all that creative work. And I guess by age 21, I had officially started doing Andrew WK. And the main idea was to cheer myself up initially. Like many younger people, especially in those teenage years, I really struggled with a lot of anger, depression, just bad feelings. Sometimes really, really bad. And they led me astray or got me into trouble. Fortunately not too bad, but I was really into doing things that try to make other people feel bad. And was very concerning to me. So I thought there must be another way to feel better and something else I could focus my time and energy on that's just as inspiring. And if I'm going to be trying to make people feel something, maybe I could help myself and them feel more cheerful. So I thought the simplest way to sum up that feeling of cheer was the word party, in that it was open enough that everybody could understand it to some degree and have their own way to participate in a celebration, and that it was an invitation. Part of my anger and depression probably came from feeling left out, like many people do at that time in their lives. And I had a lot of friends and also people that I looked up to who chose to use their work and their creation to push the people they didn't like aside or away, and bring people that they related to closer to them, but almost sort of get revenge on people they felt they didn't relate to or that had done them wrong. And I, for whatever reason, thought it was even more exciting to find a way to make those people like me and for me to like them. So the bullies or the jocks, as people refer to them, the tough guys that gave my friends and gave me a hard time, I thought, what if we could find a way where we all got along and it was for real? And even if we didn't agree on everything the same way or live even the same life, maybe there was a moment within that we could look around and see these people that we otherwise would never be having fun with and actually be having fun. And that's what I thought a party was. Not a place where it was just your friends, but a place where you were friends with people you weren't even friends with, even if just for that moment. And that you could then walk away, later that night or the next day and retain that spirit, I guess, of possibility, that maybe things aren't always what they seem, including your own likes and dislikes for other people. Or even your own sense of, right and wrong, that all of that could be questioned. So ultimately, that kind of became this feeling of having an open mind. And ever since then, I got more and more into trying to get to that place through whatever means I could. Music still is an extremely effective and efficient way to feel good, truly good, and not just emotionally good, because I think the feeling I get from music that I like is not really an emotion at all. It's not really a mood. I mean, there's parts that are definitely mental, and you can think about the feelings, but it's a physical sensation that tells me I'm glad I'm not dead, and I like to stay surrounded by that as much as possible. But other ways are equally effective beyond music, and that's what I found doing things like this. I mean, I've met so many people now over the years that don't like loud rock music for whatever crazy reason, yet they said they read an interview that I did or saw an event like this or connected with something where they were also able to get to that feeling of possibility, of excitement, of goodness. And I thought, well, there's really some value here. I can get to more people and keep this feeling going. Because there's times when even, the most proven methods don't work for everybody. I didn't want to leave anybody out of the party, so this talking thing seems to count for other people just as much. With that being said, there's three ideas when it comes to this philosophy, as I've been calling it, a philosophy of partying, that I wanted to talk about. And it does, for me, a lot of times go back to using these methods to fight against bad feelings, feelings of hopelessness, feelings of almost exhaustion, feelings of anxiety about the intensity of being alive. And one of the main concepts that's cheered me up is this idea that you don't need to adhere to any one point of view. And for a long time, I thought that sort of growing up or moving through the world was about accumulating experiences that help define my particular point of view, and that you're canceling out certain ideas and sticking with others. But I thought maybe the most exciting feeling I ever have felt was sort of the space between two ideas, between either right and wrong, between yes and no, between good and bad, between true and false. And if I could stay in that state of possibility, that was maybe truly having an open mind. And when I became more depressed was usually when I had sort of settled on some kind of idea as definitive, as that I knew what was going on. I mean, I wasn't being very humble either in those moments, like I really thought I had figured it all out. And I think that what happens at its worst is that you become isolated in your own beliefs. You become isolated from other people, disconnected from what other people believe, or their ideas, what they could possibly offer you. And then worst of all, you can become disconnected and isolated from even your own self. And that's, I guess I've seen that happen a lot of times maybe with people that are older than me, who are certainly wise and have lived longer, so I give them credit and certainly the benefit of the doubt that maybe they have figured things out further. But we also are aware of that idea of someone who's so set in their ways. I don't want to ever be set in any way, even to go as far as to doubt the very idea of doubt. That really keeps you swinging. And it is kind of tiring to not ever rest on one idea and to even question the very idea of not resting on an idea. But that has been a really go-to state of mind for relieving anxiety and sadness. Because it is easy for me to think that as beautiful and fantastic as life is, and certainly sitting in a room like this makes it feel very close, it's also very bizarre and crushingly strange to be alive. the feeling of being alive, I think, is a physical sensation. I mean, you feel it when you wake up or you come to, out of sleep or something. It's a flavor. It's like the taste in your mouth, what it is to be you. And I think that you can, for me, again, best feel that when you're in between one thought or another. So another really kind of fun trick to get to that feeling in a real tangible way is to think about paradoxes, something that's both true and false at the same time. Meditating on those kinds of ideas, I find, puts one in touch with that sense of possibility and like the actual feeling of life, which isn't a good feeling or a bad feeling, it's just a feeling. And maybe we don't always need to know exactly what something is or understand it or comprehend it to actually experience it. Music at its best, I think, really gives us that in the strongest, most concentrated dose that we have. And maybe music, or even the arts in general, paintings, any kind of visual statement of any kind, is a chance to revel and fathom that physical feeling. Because I used to think like looking at a painting that someone made was looking at the story that's in the painting, which it can be, or the idea that they're trying to express, or their own experiences, but really it's the feeling of looking at the painting. I mean, someone can say, what's this song about? Especially if the song has no lyrics and it's just melody. The song is about the feeling of hearing the song. There's no more to understand than that. And that space of freedom is a really wonderful place to be. What more could I say about that other than I'm in the throes of this myself and contemplating it and wrestling with it and doubting it. And it does seem to be a potentially slippery slope to keep going further and further in that direction, but it's a worthwhile abyss to explore. And do you ever cross it? That's probably the biggest joke of all, is thinking that you've ever crossed the abyss entirely is probably a sign that you haven't. Maybe not even entered it. All right, now we got about another hour to go. What else? Well, I would like to open this up to Q&A, because that to me is the most exciting part. So if at any time anyone has any questions, and I really like how intimate this room is, that we don't even need microphones. It really is a conversation. So please feel free to ask anything about anything at any time. Yes?
Do you think partying is like a force for good for the soul or whatever? So why every time I do it I feel so bad?
Well, this is a great example of how to define partying itself, which, thanks for even bringing that up. To me, all partying was doing what you enjoy with an awareness that you're doing it. So a very simple example is, it's Friday today. As you can hear, many people are celebrating the end of the week and perhaps the early beginnings of summer and the end of the school year, etc. So we actively take note of that and do things that are fun. You can celebrate a birthday because you're glad to have been born. You can celebrate the new year for similar reasons, etc. But if you're glad to not be dead, then you can sort of retain that spirit all year round. And you're constantly, actively engaged in some state of gratitude. It's very hard to be in a bad mood when you're thinking about things you're thankful for. It really is. It might be even impossible. And I've tried it, believe me. But if you feel really foolish and a bit embarrassed to be so crabby when you can think of just any one thing that you're thankful for. So I think partying is just being in a state of gratitude and doing something about it. Partying hard is when you do it with a lot of effort and intensity. When you don't have any sleep and yet you get up and keep working at something because you're excited about it. To follow truly what you feel you were put on earth to do, is partying at its best, I think. And if you feel bad, that's all part of it. I mean, the hangover from partying, whether it's caused by substances or not, is all part of the fantastic dynamics. Life isn't always supposed to feel good physically necessarily or emotionally, and it's that full range, that full spectrum that makes it so satisfying. That's how we can tell we do feel good when we do, because we don't feel like we did when we felt bad. If we always felt good, then probably wouldn't feel very much at all. Thanks for asking about that. This is good, and just so you know, I am working on a book right now called The Party Bible, so if your questions are really good and we get some good ideas, I may steal them and include them in the book as my own ideas. So if you notice your idea in there, I hope that's tribute enough. Yes.
Of all the substances that exist, what would you say is the most party? Because I love pizza, and pizza makes me happy to be alive. So what do you think?
Out of all the substances, which is the most party? Well, I really do like pizza, and I'm glad that you also do. It does seem to be quite popular everywhere I've gone. It's probably almost as popular as food itself. Maybe in that spirit, water is maybe the partiest substance. Without that, we really would die. So you got to give it to water out of respect. I mean, beyond that, it is interesting how substances get divvied up into all these categories in terms of what's legal, or what's good, or what's healthy, or what's worthwhile, what is meant to be taken for a specific need, and what is meant to be taken for fun, and how to differentiate that. I would say that spiritually speaking, as a human, it might be necessary for some people to have a psychedelic experience, as much as water could be necessary, in terms of having a fully human experience. And it's very interesting that there's a drug called ibogaine, which is illegal in the US, and I believe as well here, that has shown extremely effective results for curing addiction of all kinds. It's a psychedelic drug that probably is one of the most, if not the most intense psychedelic experiences you can have, that lasts for about 10 hours. I have not taken it, but it's legal in Canada, for example. And so heroin addicts will go up there to Canada and go on ibogaine and not only be cured of their addiction, but find a version of life that they had never otherwise even fathomed. And yet that is not available to people, that could really use it. So I think it's interesting, certainly, how those things get divvied up. I think all drugs should be legal. And I think that, drug dealers and what comes from that is the real problem, not the drug. It's the need for the drug that causes the anguish and the suffering. It seems like from what people have tried in other countries, it works quite well to let people do what they want. And almost when the stigma is gone, people kind of move on to other things oftentimes. But all experiences seem to have their place and their value, even the lowest, worst, nightmarish versions of reality. There's something to be gained, either witnessing someone else going through it or going through it yourself. To fathom the depths of one's own potential, for good or bad, is valuable. It's just can be really upsetting. But I think, and I don't know that there's that saying, who said this? The road of excess leads to the palace of wisdom.
I wish I knew.
Someone said it. And
Anyone any ideas?
But I don't know that it meant try and do everything to truly be excessive. I think that it meant if you wind up being excessive, you're bound to realize that perhaps you shouldn't have been so excessive, and that was maybe the wisdom. But how else are you going to know unless you've gone there? So I've always had a lot of respect for people that have ventured down into those levels of darkness, because there is something heroic about it, and there's something frightening about it. And I think why we get so freaked out if we haven't done those things is because we realize our potential and how close any of us are, not only to doing those things ourselves or having those experiences, but how close we are to the other people who are going through them. But with all that being said, yeah, pizza is really, really good. And it's a lot more low pressure and less intense than some of the other stuff we talked about there. Thanks for asking about that. I also like tacos a lot. And I've noticed that Mexican food is starting to appear on the scene here a bit more. Yeah, we walked by a Mission Burrito place. And there was a burrito place in the train station. And I ordered food from it. And it was really good. That is one thing I will say. My career basically started in England as Andrew WK. My first album was released here before anywhere else. I Get Wet with the Bloody Nose on the front cover in 2001. At the first concert my band and I ever played anywhere in the whole world was in London. The first reviews of anyone reacting to anything that we put out started here. So it's quite interesting to me. I never would have expected that, and to have a connection like that to this place is very particular. But one thing I didn't really like at the beginning was there wasn't as much food options. There were a lot of pies and Scotch eggs and kebabs. Yeah, sausage rolls, those are good. But the food situation is definitely improved, and I'm very thankful for it. Any other questions? Yes.
Obviously, there is one generation of the majority of people in this room. I have a question to ask. My children got me into listening to the music. They are come to see it. Is there ever an age where one of a certain age is too old to carry on partying and maybe trying to live their life with their children? Or is it acceptable to just go once you drop dead and down?
Thank you, first of all, for being here. Thanks very much to your children for helping you party. And that's a great question. I mean, hopefully everybody carries on until they drop dead. Like, that seems like you're going to do that whether you want to or not. You're going to live until you die, one way or another. And I hope that it's always with your family. That's probably one of the most unfortunate situations at all, is when someone is, for whatever reason, separated from their family, either by choice or by circumstance. It's just more and more I realize the magic of what a family is. And then as far as partying, again, it's how you define it. Partying doesn't have to have anything to do with drugs or alcohol or consuming anything in a way that would be detrimental, other than consuming life. And usually consuming life, emboldens you. You have to recognize your limit and then occasionally push past it. That's like, exercise. You're exercising your own soul, really. You're expanding your capacity for life and for being a human being, and that's something that I think you not only do for your whole life, but you get better at doing. If you stay within your limits, I don't even think that they stay your limits. I think they start to shrink down, just like a muscle that isn't being used. It atrophies. So you have to push yourself, really full circle and exceed yourself. And then you set a new level, a new limit. I think being in a state of comfort, it's very strange, because we've really, as just a species, we've worked so hard to develop skills that make life easier, less painful, more comfortable. And that is certainly desirable and fantastic, and it gives us then these luxuries to do things like build, a university and think about things and study things, rather than just forage for food and try not to get sick and die. So all these luxuries are there to make life richer, but when we mistake